Well, greetings and salutations, and welcome once again to the Newsman Weekly Podcast, episode number 52. Thanks again to all of you for joining us today. We know you've got a ton of places you can go every day for news, information, and the occasional entertainment, and we're glad so many of you come to us each and every week. We are closing in on the one-year anniversary of the Newsman Weekly, so that birthday is coming up next week, in fact. And we couldn't have done this without your support, so please, if you haven't done it already, subscribe to this show and give it like a 20-star rating. Mm-hmm. Can you give a 20-star rating, or is it a 5?
I think it's 5, but
all right, well, here,
5 works.
Subscribe, rate it 5, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and rate it again.
You can do that. Cook the books. Cook the books.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, my thanks to the great folks at Relax It's Just Coffee for sponsoring this show and for being the best partner to the Newsman Weekly. Every day just starts better with great coffee, and our friend Paul Kimmerling and his baristas at Relax simply have the best in town at 105 North Main Street in downtown Mansfield. So please, ignore anything you see in terms of Main Street construction. Pay no attention to it whatsoever. Get over to Relax and all the other businesses that are kind of patiently waiting for the street to be resurfaced now. Get a cup of coffee from Paul. Get a fresh pastry from Blackbird Bakery, located right inside the coffee shop. No better way to start your day. Tell them the Newsman from Richland Source sent you. And folks, we could not do this show without our friends at Relax It's Just Coffee.
Yeah, I was down there this morning. I didn't notice any construction.
No,
it's business as usual.
Yeah,
come on,
right,
people.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of voices you're hearing, I am joined again today by Zach Heiser, the executive producer of the Newsman Weekly, and Hayden Gray, the show's official videographer.
Hi.
Oh, did you actually say something?
I did. I said hello.
Okay, well, next time wait till I finish introducing you, and then you say hi. This is not rocket science. I mean, you went to Shelby. You should know how to do this stuff. Folks, we post the audio of this show every week, but you can also watch it, thanks to Hayden's sterling efforts, on the Richland Source YouTube page. So if you want to see behind the scenes of this multimedia madness, check it out there.
See our beautiful faces.
Yes, or at least one beautiful face when we have guests or something. Hey, good morning, gentlemen. How the hell are you? It's Miss Ohio Week in Mansfield. Are you physically and mentally prepared for Miss Ohio Week?
You kick it off this week.
Okay,
I spoke first last week.
Miss Ohio Week, there's a lot going on right now. I was at Juneteenth this weekend. I went out to the fairgrounds, to that little vintage market thrift shop they had. There's a bunch of vendors out there. That was fun. Did you have a good Father's Day?
I worked.
Did your kids get you socks or anything?
No, I worked.
You're on grandpa duty a lot too, right? Double duty?
A lot of grandpa duty over the weekend, and I worked. I went out and posted 115 pictures from the Miss Ohio parade.
Just as you love to do.
He's just racking up pictures.
Well, somebody's got to do it. But Hayden, I think you'll be directly involved at some point this week in Miss Ohio's scholarship program event coverage. So what do you have on tap for this week?
I'll be there Friday night. I don't know exactly which of the competitions are on Friday night. I know that's the second night of preliminary contest events. I think that's what I did last year. Last year was the first year I ever went to it, so I had no idea what to expect last year, and we'll get the job done again this year. I don't know much about that world, but I know how to use a camera. So.
Yeah, is there favorites? Can I get a list of odds
is there
for
betting?
Miss Ohio contestants? I'd love to bet on it.
When I was talking to my friend Doc Stumbo, who was the Grand Marshal of the parade this year, Doc's been around the Miss Ohio program for 40 years. And I said, Doc, so who's going to win this year?
Yeah.
And he goes, everybody wins. Carl, you know that.
Oh, Doc.
No. Doc.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Doc is one of the last truly great Americans, and it was great to see him out there riding in the Grand Marshal's car yesterday. And there's no finer person than Doc Stumbo, so I was glad to see him.
Well, I'll be
there.
rooting for Grace Regal because she did come on the Newsman podcast. So.
She did. There are
that's a point.
There are several folks, local young people who are involved in the competition this year. So there is a Miss Richland County. So we have a Miss Mansfield and a Miss Richland County this year. So
Locally represented. That's good.
stay tuned, folks. We will have wall-to-wall coverage of the Miss Ohio Scholarship Program
Yes, we will.
in the days ahead. Hey, we got another great show for you today. In a few minutes, we're going to be joined by members of the Mansfield Shakespeare Company. The group has a free outdoor show coming up this weekend at South Park. The comedy Twelfth Night will be staged Friday and Saturday night, as well as Sunday afternoon, and we will get all the details on that show for you when our guests arrive for that. Also joining us later will be Mansfield Finance Director Kelly Converse. As you may have heard in the last several weeks, the city was the victim of a $748,000 email phishing attack back in May. We're going to get updated information on exactly what happened and what the city has done in response to that theft. It's a tough word to say after phishing and theft. So stay tuned for that conversation. But before then, we do have some news for you. Mansfield City Council Tuesday night will consider tax incentives that could lead to an expansion of Ohio Valley manufacturing on Harrington Memorial Road on the city's north side. The company does heavy gauge metal stamping for automotive, heavy truck, and agricultural markets. The company plans to add tool room and coil storage to accommodate new business. The Community Reinvestment Area Tax Incentive Agreement would help the company maintain its current 152-member workforce and add 19 additional jobs, adding nearly $1 million in additional annual payroll. Ohio Valley Manufacturing plans to spend more than $4 million in construction and building improvements. It would get a 100% tax abatement on real property for the next 7 years as part of the agreement. That's just one of the items on a fairly full City Council agenda for tonight. Local lawmakers are taking a summer break after this session and are scheduled to meet again until July 15th.
Does that mean a summer break for you and Hayden and whoever else covers council for you?
You know, I don't get another vacation until December.
Well, at least your Tuesday evenings will free up.
Yeah, well, you never know.
So.
There's always something going on somewhere.
But yeah, Harrington Memorial, that's really going to be 20 years in the future. That's going to look a lot different. It already is looking different.
Well, they are one of the companies. When I wrote that little blurb on Saturday, I hadn't gone through fully the City Council agenda, but they are one of two companies that actually have a tax incentive agreement on the agenda. The other is Powell Calibration Glass and Service Centers, currently doing business as Baker's Collision and Repair. Okay. They've got a pretty sizable investment going on, taking place at, trying to get the address here, 705 Fifth Avenue. It's $4.4 million in Hayden. When I posted that story, I went back and got one of those pictures you took a while back. Was able to use with that. They're asking for a 50% property tax exemption for 15 years. They're going to add 9 new jobs with $500,000 in additional annual payroll. So that's two good things coming tomorrow night at City Council.
It's going to be a body shop or Baker's?
Well,
are they doing something else?
Right?
They're going to expand.
Okay.
I believe when I looked at the paperwork, it said, quote, "We will offer vehicle repairs that are currently not being offered in this area. One of these services is the ability to service hydraulics, including bucket trucks." Said additionally, as vehicles are becoming more complex, they're requiring calibration services for all the safety systems, and calibration of vehicles will be a large portion of this enterprise. They're anticipating generating $1 million plus in additional sales during the first year. So that's kind of a really big deal. 2 local family-owned businesses that are doing great things, and the City Council will likely vote to help them out with some tax incentives for these expansions.
Well, and the Baker site is honestly pretty cool. They've been moving a lot of dirt. It's pretty intense out there. I think my son will be sad when they're done with construction because he honestly enjoys watching all the trucks. But props to them. Like, that wasn't an easy area to work on. It's a big hill by 30.
Hey, financial help may be on the way for Main Street businesses impacted by the ongoing Main Street Corridor Improvement Project. I covered the Downtown Improvement Advisory Board meeting on Thursday, and they voted to recommend a $50,000 grant program that would award $2,500 grants to 20 different businesses on Main Street who can demonstrate a negative financial impact since the $19 million project began on February 24th. The city's Board of Control will consider the proposal during its meeting today. And if the Control Board approves, Downtown Mansfield, Inc. will administer the program, which will include an online application process. So stay tuned for more news about that.
Great that they're doing a grant program. I'm sure that's going to be helpful, but $2,500 is not that much. I mean, it's just another plug to get downtown this summer and go out of your way to support some of those awesome businesses down in our downtown.
Exactly. Hey, speaking of improvements, they are officially underway at the Mansfield Speedway on the city's north side. The new owners of the half-mile oval, Matt and Jordan Tift, had a groundbreaking ceremony at the track last week. The couple recently purchased the 180-acre property for $2.2 million from the Milliron Foundation. They've got ambitious plans for what they want to build into a multi-use facility off of Crawl Road. Now, this track first opened in 1959. It's had various owners and racing surfaces over the years. Closing for what most people thought was for good in 2019. The Tifts plan to breathe new life into it. We have invited Matt to join us on the Newsman Weekly podcast. We hope to have him on soon.
Until then, we did talk a little bit more about the Speedway with Clint Knight, who does a dirt track racing podcast. Right. That was last week's episode. So if you missed that and you're looking for more local racing dialogue, go check out last week's episode.
And I would encourage you, if you know Matt, let him know the newsman's looking for him.
Well, I did see, because he is very active on his Facebook, Carl. Maybe he couldn't come down yet because I think he just participated. I'm not a huge race knowledge guy.
Don't make excuses.
But he just won some dirt race, I think, up in Cleveland.
Well, you know what? Don't make excuses. Matt,
I saw a clip of him winning.
Matt, you need to get in here so we can talk about racing, because you won't find a bigger, better racing advocate in Mansfield than me. So you need to get in here and let's talk about racing. Hey, Mansfield has officially launched a 4-year, $19 million plan to replace small, century-old water mains around the city. Officials gathered on Parkway Drive near North Lake Park last week to kick off the process of replacing aging 4-inch water mains with new 8-inch lines. The city will use funds approved by voters in March of 2024 that will replace nearly 3 miles of water mains this year alone. That 4-year 0.25% income tax approved by voters is going to generate about $4.8 million each year that can only be used for water main replacement. It would probably take about 4 cycles of this tax in order to get 45 to 53 miles of these lines done. So at least they've got started on it, and pay attention. That should be some improvements that we see throughout the summer.
Yeah, that's good.
And if you're watching on YouTube, I'll throw up the picture like right now of the picture you showed Zach and I of an existing line, right, Carl?
Right.
It's a good thing these things are getting replaced, let me tell you.
Because not only are they small, they're clogged.
Yeah, 100 years will do that.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm 64 and I'm clogged. So,
100 years it's like a comet that comes around.
Yeah, you can't
replacing the water mains.
Yeah, and this is a community that's been talking about this for as long as I've been around. So we finally have, quite frankly, thanks to the friends with I'm about to draw a blank and this is terrible. Our friends with the Pothole Haters Tax, who came up with the water main tax, we've now got funds to actually get this done. But you know what? That's enough for now. Let's take a quick break. And when we do come back, we'll be joined by members of the Mansfield Shakespeare Company and then Kelly Converse from the Mansfield Finance Director's office. Stay with us. Well, welcome back to the Newsman Weekly. We're now joined by Christopher Hartman, Leanna Uselton, and Mary Frankenfield from the Mansfield Shakespeare Company. Good morning to all of you, and thanks for getting up so damn early.
Good morning. Good morning.
Now, Christopher, you are directing the show that's coming up this weekend. Give us some insights on what people will see when they come to South Park to see William Shakespeare's Twelfth Night?
Yeah, hopefully a lot of fun. This is a show that's been, it's over, 500 years old. It's a comedy that's
nearly as old as me.
It stood the test of time. It's a classic mistaken identity comedy. I hope we see a lot of fun and just actors connecting with their ensemble and actors connecting with the audience. Before we walked in here, somebody said something about the fourth wall, and I often tell my students back home that I think the fourth wall stops at the end of the house.
Okay.
So we can include the audience. So hopefully we can do that.
Is this a show where there is some degree of audience participation, or it's simply interacting in a venue that lends itself to that?
I think it lends itself to that. There are one or two moments where we have actors speaking directly to the audience. Not much beyond that, though. Yeah, just to include them, just connect with them with the energy.
Now, this is the second outdoor summer show for the company. As we saw last year, when the weather is good, people flocked out to South Park. The weather forecast as of today looks good for this upcoming weekend, but what kinds of challenges does an outdoor show face in terms of rehearsal and performances? Have you been rehearsing outdoors, or do you rehearse indoors and keep your fingers crossed?
Well, we rehearsed outside at South Park once last week. Honestly, the biggest problem then was the bugs. I know honestly, before we even started rehearsals, the thing that everyone keeps saying who was involved with the show last year is the sun gets in their eyes when they're on stage. And I think I said over and over, I don't really know how to fight the sun. I think we're just going to have to deal with that. As for the rain, I know if it rains, we do have a plan in place to go to the little pavilion there. And it'll be smaller, less space. But I think it shows how actors can adapt.
Right. Now, Leanna, you've got a dual role in this show. You're the assistant director, but you're also in the cast. How difficult is it to help prepare the show and then also take to the stage during performances?
I think the most difficult thing is just when I'm on stage, I can't really see what the other actors are doing other than when I'm participating with them on stage. But there's been a few different challenges because I was originally our Andrew Egacheek, and then more recently I was placed into the role of Viola with an emergency that happened a few days before being off book. So I've kind of gotten to see more scenes than I thought I would, because originally I was in the Andrew scenes, but now I'm in the Viola scenes, so I've gotten to see the Andrew scenes, which has been nice.
And how quickly did you pick up new lines? One thing I've found as I've gotten older, memorizing lines becomes more and more of a chore. You're far younger, but how hard is it to switch that so close to actual performance date?
It wasn't as hard as I initially thought it would be. I've always kind of wanted to be a swing at some point, so I'm pretty fast with picking up lines. People call me the sponge.
Yeah. Well, how many folks are actually in the cast, Christopher?
Oh, man.
Approximately.
12, 13? 14,
14.
15, 16. I think it's 14.
See, correct answer just going forward would be, well, we've got more than a dozen.
Yeah, more than a dozen.
Yeah, see, sometimes you just have to round numbers. But
yeah, I've never been good at math or counting.
Bigger than a bread box.
Yeah.
Trust me, when it comes to math, you're talking to the dumbest guy in the room. But, now, Mary, you've played a key role in the formation and success already of the Mansfield Shakespeare Company. You serve on the company board. Where did the idea originate to form a Shakespeare Company in Mansfield, and how's it working out thus far?
So about 10 years ago, I went with some friends to Columbus, to Schiller Park, to see Shakespeare in the Park. And I remember sitting there and having so much fun and thinking, we need this in Mansfield. I want this in my town. And I didn't have the time or wherewithal to make that happen back then. But then a friend of mine, Joel Vega, who started an opera company in Mansfield a few years ago, just randomly messaged me one day and said, Mansfield needs Shakespeare in the Park. And I said, I've been saying that for a decade. My sister and I had many conversations about this too. And so I said, I would love that. And he said, I will help get it going, since I know, I had this experience starting a nonprofit with the opera company, and I'll lend a hand to give you some guidance. And if you want to do it, he said he didn't feel like he could be part of the day-to-day. But so I reached out to Dr. Joe Fahey at the OSU Mansfield campus, and I said, do you know anyone who's interested in Shakespeare and would be interested in doing a Shakespeare group in Mansfield? And he immediately rattled off 4 or 5 people's names, and the board just sort of materialized from that list of people that he suggested, and that's kind of how we got going.
Now, what was the first show that you guys did?
Midsummer Night's Dream.
And did you have an indoor? I think you had an indoor show earlier this year, didn't you?
We did an event at the Phoenix,
Okay.
Up in the Spirit Room.
Okay.
And it was called Spirited Shakespeare. And we had, it was actually, rather than a full production, it was a series of monologues and scenes from different shows. And then we threw in some fun games and Shakespearean trivia and things like that. So,
I should have developed some Shakespeare trivia questions for you guys.
we'll ask you next time we do
yeah,
it.
Okay, that would be a great idea. I'm sure I would bomb horribly. Speaking of Shakespeare and his works, and I'll open this up. All of you can chime in on this. How hard is it, or do you have to take license, or is there a way? I'm just trying to think about words that were written, 5 centuries ago, for today's audiences. Do you have to modify it? Do people seem to relate? Do they understand? I know it's mistaken identity, which is a theme that's followed through a zillion times over the years in other shows. But talk about the language of Shakespeare and what you have to do with it, if anything, to make it something today's audiences can relate to.
I'll speak to that.
Okay.
I know for this production, the play is cut down just a little bit. But what I think is really interesting about this show is that the nobility speaks in iambic pentameter, where more lowborn characters do not.
Okay, let's assume, because you're talking to me, that people don't know what iambic pentameter is.
So it's like a heartbeat, right? Ba-ba, 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 right?
Okay.
Usually 10 beats per line, not always, because you got to know the rules to break the rules, and Shakespeare loved to break his rules. But with the language, I think if the actor is understanding it and they are being honest in their performance, then the audience is usually along for the ride. Now, I know I can't think of a word in this production. Nothing really sticks out to me right now. I know in Romeo and Juliet, when I did that show in college, there is a word that I had to look everywhere to find it, and that's Godja-gooden, which is a word that William Shakespeare made up, and it's just so it can fit in the beats in the iambic pentameter, and it means God grant you a good evening, right? So sometimes I think you do have to adjust a little bit. I don't believe we really have in this show. But again, if the actor knows what they're saying and they're being honest, audience is along for the ride.
I think I used that phrase at the Spirit Room about 11:30, 12 o'clock one night.
After a few whiskeys.
Yeah, kind of sounded just like that. I mean, that's almost Lewis Carroll-like,
Yeah.
I just need something to fill up this space, so I'm just going to make up my own word.
Yeah.
That's how journalism works for me. I just kind of make up my own words. Leanna, what role are you playing now in the show, and how does it fit into the cast?
I am playing Viola. She is one of the twins that get shipwrecked in Elyria.
Not Elyria, Ohio, obviously.
No.
So make sure.
But basically, once she's shipwrecked in Elyria, it kind of causes a commotion a little bit. It changes the lives of everyone else with these new people coming in. And she is dealing with the thought of her brother being shipwrecked and he might be dead, and just the heartache of that. But then also she disguises herself as a man in order to get a job with the Count in town, Count Orsino, and she ends up falling in love with him, which causes a little bit of trouble.
Now, this whole concealment thing is something Shakespeare had seemed to enjoy. So the question is, was his name William or was it Elizabeth? Because I've heard that over the years, that perhaps he wasn't really he. I don't know. Do you guys know anything about that?
I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
I think
because he wrote at a time which wouldn't really have been acceptable.
Yeah.
For what he was doing.
There are a lot of people that think that maybe he didn't write, that he was sort of the name that was used, but other people wrote. But I think a lot of academics discredit that notion. Okay. So there are differences of opinion, I guess.
I think it plays into the idea of one man could not possibly write this broad of a range of human nature, and how he's able to dive into that compared to other writers.
And there's certainly nothing wrong with controversy in terms of theater productions. It just helps soak the flames, right? Mary, what does the future hold? You've a couple of years under your belts now in terms of doing shows. What's the future hold for the Mansfield Shakespeare Company, and how will you define success this weekend?
So as far as this weekend goes, we're hoping to see similar, if not larger numbers attend. We've added a third performance. Last year we just did a Saturday evening and a Sunday matinee. So this year we're doing a Friday evening as well. We had such large numbers of people last year. We were not expecting that. I remember thinking if we get 50 people, I'll be happy. And it was like 200 the first night and 150 on Sunday. So if we see that again, I will be over the moon excited. But I think we'd like to see some growth in potentially more events throughout the year in the future. But also I think just really honing what we're doing now and getting really, really solid and excellent at it.
And what's the reaction or what's the reception been like for when you go to have auditions? I know community theaters can struggle sometimes to find cast members. So what was the response this year to the casting call?
Well, from my part, it was really great. We had good numbers. I felt nervous last year and this year, like, is anyone going to show up? And we ended up with more people than we needed to cast the show.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, it's always a nice thing when you have choices.
Yeah, I mean, I know the first night, I was a little nervous because, I was new to this theater company. And the first night, there were about 4 or 5 people that auditioned. And then the second night, there were, I think, like, I'm going to say somewhere around 20.
Yeah.
So
that's excellent.
I went home after the first night of auditions thinking, what am I going to do? And then the second night I went, what am I going to do? There's so many people.
All right, now this is a free show, correct? People just need to bring lawn chairs or a blanket. Though I worry if people bring blankets and then there are lawn chairs that might be in front. I always tell people bring a chair, not a blanket. But
chairs are probably a little more comfortable for some people. We do try to show people, ask people who are sitting in chairs to move back so that the people on blankets can see better. So we try to encourage that a little bit.
All right, I will get out and write a preview of the show, which I think we're going to publish on Wednesday. But we're going to have to stop there today. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. I know it's early, and I certainly appreciate when people are willing to get out and work on their art this early on a Monday.
Thank you.
And I encourage everybody, get out to South Park this weekend for Twelfth Night by the Mansfield Shakespeare Company. Free show stages Friday and Saturday nights at 7:30 and then Sunday at 3:30. Bring your lawn chairs, have a great time. I looked at the weather. Weather looks great. No excuse. Free show. People who say there's nothing to do in Mansfield, stop it. I'll just say that right now.
Agreed.
All right. Well, thank you again. Stay with us here on the Newsman Weekly. Mansfield Finance Director Kelly Converse joins us next. Well, welcome back to the Newsman Weekly. As promised, joining us now is Mansfield Finance Director Kelly Converse. Kelly, thanks for coming in so early in the morning to talk about something that's not really so much fun to talk about.
It's not, but I appreciate you having me on to hear what I have to say.
All right. We're talking about a recent email phishing incident, and I say phishing, I believe it's phishing.
Indeed.
Let's go back to May 22nd, Kelly. Tell us what happened that day and what's been labeled as I believe this number has been reported now, $748,145 email scheme that attempted to defraud the city of Mansfield.
Well, actually, we'd have to go back before that date, Carl, because it originated on May 12th.
Okay.
So on May 12th, these criminals sent individual emails, one to two individuals in my department who both forwarded on to another party that they thought should be the person to handle it because it wasn't in their purview. So when it eventually landed with the AP specialist, she had received the email twice from both of her supervisors. So in her mind, she was like, oh, I better take care of this, vendor. So what it was were these imposters who were pretending to be the CFO of
Is it Shook Construction?
Shook Construction, yes. And they were asking about payment arrangements. As a vendor of ours, they wanted to know what payment arrangements we offered. So she responded to this email and told them that they had already been set up with ACH payments, and then they decided...
Those are, just make sure people
Yes.
understand acronyms. Automated Electronic Funds Transfer.
Yes.
Okay.
It stands for Automated Clearinghouse,
Oh, thank you.
but it's an electronic funds transfer, all the same. Yeah, and
gotcha.
EFT, ACH.
Yeah, hard money doesn't go anywhere. It goes from one account to another account.
Correct.
Okay.
So they asked to update their ACH information, and she sent them our ACH payment authorization form. So they completed that form, emailed it back. She made the change in the vendor system and then forwarded it to the next person for approval. And that person approved the change. This all happened on May 13th. So the original email came in May 12th. It was finally handled on May 13th. Fast forward to May 22nd. We do have a valid invoice to pay for Shook Construction in the amount of $748,000,
145 and
big
46
number.
cents. Yeah.
And we sent that by ACH to this fraudulent account. So it was a valid payment. It was just sent to the fraudulent account instead of their real account. So that happened on May 22nd. And we still have no knowledge that any of this has transpired. On the 29th, the receiving bank, which was Key Bank, called Park National, who is our local bank, and said, we think there's something suspicious with this account. Can you, call the city and check on it? This was like the afternoon of the 29th. So they call. We have auditors in working on the audit. Everyone is like, there's a flurry of activity. And my treasury manager comes in and he says, I think we have some fraud. So we actually called the real Shook Construction Company to see if they ever received the payment. And they said, no, they didn't. So then he went out front and asked the AP specialist, do you recall changing any information about this vendor? At which time she says, yes, I updated their ACH information, and at that point, then we knew that we were the victims of this fraud.
I have a quick question. Did Shook Construction, you had a valid invoice that you owed them?
Yes.
And so did the scammers know that? Did they have some sort of list of like, hey, this is it? Because if you didn't have any invoice, it'd be probably stop there, right?
I have a theory about how this could have happened. We periodically, and by periodically I mean about quarterly, receive public records requests from this company, and they ask for, one, our entire vendor list with the contact information, and then they ask for all of our purchase order lists, which tells who we're doing business with, how much we are encumbering for them, how much money we're setting aside to pay them, the actual items and the item cost on those purchase orders, and also it contains the balance that is still due to that vendor on those purchase orders. So after all of this happened, I got to thinking about those requests because we had recently had one. So we called that company just to find out, what they do, make sure they were a legitimate company, which they were, and they are, but they had made a duplicate request to us. One was a really broad request they had asked for, and then they made another one that was asking specifically for information about the police department and wanting to go back several years for the police department. So I wrote them back and said, well, we kind of fulfilled this request, and the last one, it's contained in this broader request that you asked for. And then they kind of let it go. When we called them, we learned that they gather all of this information and create these databases so that they can help other companies figure out whether they're competitive in their bidding when they're trying to get government contracts. So it is a legitimate request. They are a legitimate business. However, there was one request that my assistant fielded that he thought was a little strange. It was different. It was a different company making the same request. So because all of this information is public and anyone can ask for it, they've got information about, here's this construction company that the city still owes this large amount of money to.
Right.
And it becomes a great target to try and carry out a scheme like this.
And for those wondering, this is work that Shook Construction has done during the water plant upgrades at the Mansfield Water Treatment Plant. So this amount that was paid is actually was something that was owed, but it was actually owed to Shook Construction, not the company. So what happened after that day? Okay, it's May 29th. This has been discovered.
May 29th.
May 29th. What happens after that? Who do you notify?
Immediately, we notified the police department. That was the first notification that we made, was to MPD that we had been a victim of fraud. And while we got that investigation going, we said, hey, we've got to get the city administration involved. We've got to let everyone know what's happened. And also, I have to report this fraud to the state of Ohio. So on the Auditor of State's website under cybercrimes, there's a whole checklist of reports that you have to make. So we had to report to the FBI, make an IC3 report. I had to report the fraud through the Auditor of State's office on their reporting forms. And then I believe that the Mansfield Police Department is now working with the Secret Service to investigate this because the bank where this took place is in Xenia, Ohio.
That's where Key Bank was located.
Where the fraudulent account was set up.
So what have you heard since then? And I know one of the things that people have talked about is the city just lost $748,148, but you've said the city is insured. So what does that mean? Do you get all of that money back? Will they be able to track that money down, or is it just gone? Will insurance rates rise as a result? How does this work?
Well, on the 30th, we convened a task force of myself, my treasury manager, the mayor, the service safety director, the police chief, risk management, and the law director and his assistant law director to discuss what next steps were and how we were going to handle this situation. So the risk manager contacted insurance, and we are insured for instances up to $1 million. So they indicated that this would be a covered event, so thankfully, and we will recover the funds. Additionally, Key Bank told Park National that there were some funds still left in that account, that it was not completely emptied out. So Park filed whatever it was they needed to file with Key so that they would freeze the account. And when their investigation is complete, then we will be able to recover whatever is left. They kind of led Park to believe that they might be able to reverse a couple transactions, but we're still waiting to hear how that goes. So I don't know where that stands. That's in the hands of the Secret Service and MPD, and I assume they'll let me know once that has concluded.
Now, one of the things I also hear is, this kind of mistake shouldn't happen. And we're going to talk a little bit in a few minutes about Ohio House Bill 283, because this is not the first community this kind of stuff has happened to recently. How did you deal with the folks in your office? Is there any discipline? I'm not going to ask for names or anything, but what have you done internally in terms of with your employees to help make sure this doesn't happen again?
Well, all of this happened without my knowledge. I had no idea this email existed, and when it was brought to my attention and I saw the email, I kind of I lost my cool initially, because to me it was clearly fraudulent from the get-go.
Was there like misspelled
There
email
weren't
and-
misspellings, but one, the CFO of a construction company who's done millions of dollars of business with us is not calling to ask us about our payment arrangements, about what we offer for
Right.
payments. And they referred to us as your firm. It's that
Right.
it was,
Yeah.
as one of your vendors, we'd like to inquire about what payment arrangements you have, your firm offers. And I was like, oh, MG, did no one read this?
Right.
And when you scrutinize the email address, it's a generic email address for a CFO who is a high-ranking official in the company, and he's not going to have a generic email address. And their email address isn't going to end with .org. That's generally for nonprofit organizations. It would be a .com most likely, or it maybe even a .net, but not a .org. So all of these things boom, hit me immediately. And I couldn't understand why my staff had missed it, because we had talked at length about the potential for fraud, especially in our department, because we are the ones guarding the money. We are the ones writing the checks. We are the ones sending out the payments. So Friday morning, when I went into the office and just, was still carrying the weight of all of this, I let go, probably several expletives that I otherwise would not have.
Expletives not deleted.
Exactly. In the front of the office for everyone to hear. I'm not really proud of that. But I mean, I was so angry. I was very angry because it should have been caught. It should never have gotten through. Had I seen it, it never would have gotten through. So, everyone felt terrible. Nobody did anything maliciously. It was truly neglectful and careless, and because their focus is on, I've got to hurry up and get this done, rather than I have to slow down and scrutinize this. So, we have come to the mindset that we are constantly under siege. So I've been hammering that into them. You have to act like we are constantly under attack, and you have to question everything. Trust no one. Verify first, trust later. So we've been working on, different processes. I now will be the one to approve any vendor change to any vendor record to keep this from happening until they're, okay or comfortable that they can recognize all of these fraudulent requests.
I know once you took office in January of last year, you had a lot of seats to fill. You had to replace a lot of people. So I'm assuming this may have involved some folks who haven't been in your employ or have worked for the city all that long.
Exactly. The AP specialist, the role that she had before she was the accounts payable specialist was in payroll. And prior to that, she was the kind of associate. She was the finance clerk in accounts payable. Very diligent, very thorough, very, checks all of the details of her work. So we had a lot of faith in her ability. However, in this role as AP specialist, she had been there less than 3 months doing this role and never had control over vendor records. So, this was a misstep for her. However, it wasn't communicated to her supervisor that this was going on either. And then, the approver of the vendor record, while he has been with the office a long time, he was busy with audit. Plus, we lost the person that he was training as our audit manager had just resigned. So he was doing those two jobs and something that he just does, occasionally. So it really was a perfect storm of circumstances that allowed this to happen. But, we have made corrections to our processes. Everyone is now slowing down. I'm sharing with them. I receive spam emails every single day, multiple emails every single day that, I now am printing and sharing and pointing out, look at this. Because on the 30th, I mean, the day that all of this came to light and we were dealing with, we received another one from someone pretending to be from Kokosing, wanting to update their ACH information. And so it was like, upon inspection, this is not Kokosing's email address. This is not their website. This person obviously is pretending to be who this AP person is. And so, it's just like we have to slow down and scrutinize everything.
Yeah, and if you probably, I don't know if you've gotten ones people pretending to be you, and sending to, we've got that internally here with fake Jay Allred.
Yeah.
Emails us. He's like,
Yeah.
hey, can you do me a favor? It's usually
Yes.
a new employee.
Yes.
If they just they start a job on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
They pull their email and they send some fake email pretending to be Jay. Hey, go run out and get me 5, $100 Apple gift
Yes.
cards and send them to this address. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
we'll never ask you to do that.
Right. I have them pretending to be employees of the city and wanting to change their direct deposit information. And those are clearly fake. Like I had one pretending to be the mayor. So I engaged with this person for a little while and I was like, sure, stop down and pick up the form and, we'll get that changed for you. Well, I can't pick up the form. Would you mind emailing it? Well, we can't do that. Or sometimes I'll just get aggravated and I'll say, not today, scammer. You got the wrong girl today.
Now, I know you've said your office is going to implement cybersecurity training and stricter vendor verification procedures. What exactly does that mean, and why wouldn't that have already been done in an office that controls a whole bunch of money?
Well, that's a really good question, Carl.
Thank you.
And I will admit that I think we are behind on all of that. What I had brought to the attention of the administration, because IT is not under my authority. In some places, IT is under the authority of the finance department, but here it is not. And every newsletter that I was receiving, everything is all talking about cybersecurity. Every training has a cybersecurity component to it. So I had asked was sharing this information with the administration and said, people are having cybersecurity committees. Why don't we start a cybersecurity committee? Well, that was already something they were working on. So it's a brand new committee that has just been formulated at the city to start addressing these issues and to start training. And since this all happened, we actually now have monthly mandatory cybersecurity trainings delivered to us. And if we don't complete that training satisfactorily, we lose our access to the network. So that has begun. I don't know why it wasn't before. I mean, there was a lot of turnover in our IT department, so maybe there's a reason why it wasn't a priority before. And, every administration has different focuses that they have. But for us, it will be a greater, more intense focus in our department, especially just because of this. But I think everyone now, the people who were involved in this are mortified. I mean, everyone's remorseful. So I know that this experience has caused everyone to be hypervigilant, which we should have been beforehand, but we will be going forward. And, I just want to assure the public that we're going to do everything possible to make sure that we never fall victim to anything like this again.
And just so folks understand, once this happened, and I knew you were coming in today, I did some work over the weekend looking at, municipal or government cyber attacks. There is a bill in the Ohio House Bill 283, which is a response to a wave of cyber attacks aimed at the story I read called it relatively low-level government agencies such as municipality. The bill's co-sponsor, a Republican from Perrysburg, said April of last year that the state auditor reported at least 23 cyber attacks against government offices in the last 12 months. So under this House bill, it's going to require, assuming it passes and becomes law, there's things that municipalities such as the city of Mansfield or a village or any other cities like Shelby or Ontario that they're going to have to do in terms of training, notification. What have you heard about House Bill 283?
Actually, I didn't hear anything about that until I was doing my own research about the prevalence of these kinds of things. And, I think it's something that is definitely necessary. I'm all for it. Everyone should have cybersecurity policies, they should be communicated to the state. It should be something that we're audited on as far as that goes. But did you see where there were other entities who were also hit with the same type of scheme where it involved a construction company? One of them was for over $600,000, another one was for over $700,000. So these scammers are sophisticated. We learned in our cybersecurity training that a lot of times these scammers will cast a wide net, and they'll just hope that somebody gets caught in it and that they end up getting something. But for this attack on us, they targeted 2 individuals. And those 2 individuals ended up getting this email to the one person who could make the change happen. And then they waited for that payment. They knew that there was an outstanding payment to be made to them, and they waited for it.
Now, how did they get, or do they know yet how the scam or scammers got the direct emails of folks in your office?
I do not know that.
Okay.
I do not know that. We don't publish those.
Right.
It's not on our website. So I'm not sure how they found out, who these people in my office were.
Now, there's a couple of lawmakers talking about House Bill 283, because it requires municipalities, for example, to come up with their own cybersecurity training and plans. And they asked, why isn't this a statewide approach? I know in counties have to, it's a state program that counties have to do cybersecurity training for their employees. But why wouldn't the state do the same thing with municipalities? Rather than require Mansfield, Ontario, Shelby to develop different cybersecurity training, why wouldn't the state say, you know what, here's the program, here's what you're going to implement? Is it because you're just different? Every city's their own entity, and they would chafe about having to do that?
I don't know why the state makes some of the decisions that they make. So
I don't either. Trust me. I will go back to
that's
things.
Another podcast.
Yeah, I'll go back to the DeRolf decision involving the funding of public education in terms of, I don't understand the state.
You're making too much sense, Carl.
Well, I think
stop.
the larger cities seem like easier targets because there are more hands involved, more people involved, greater amount of dollars involved. So, you could probably keep it under the radar easier in a large city than you could a smaller municipality. Additionally, when you're asking the smaller entities to do something, then the first thing we cry is, well, it's an unfunded mandate. We don't have the money to put all of this in place. We don't have the money to buy all of this, cybersecurity software or this training, because there are companies who will test your employees. They'll send you like scam emails just to see who falls for it, and then boom, you're hit with it. And I think that would be kind of fun. Just to I would love to have something like that so I can be like, now see you got caught up.
Now, obviously, when you've been the finance director before, but it was a different time during the internet development.
Yes.
Do you remember anything like this in your previous term?
Oh, no way. No. I mean, I receive hundreds of emails every day, and I just delete spam after spam after spam after spam, and it was never like this before. So it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Right. And I would suspect construction is a great thing to target right now because there's so much ARPA money still being spent on construction. I remember thinking at the time when ARPA came out, there aren't enough contractors in the state of Ohio to do all of the work that's going to have to be done by the end of 2026.
Right.
So that's why there's so many contractors out there, and scammers realize they're getting paid big bucks, so let's go after them.
Look at you thinking like a scammer, Carl.
Well,
Well, he's been off like one.
I never went there in my mind.
Well, it's just
Isn't there like a process where it's like, what's the last 4 of your social, like those checks, right? That people have to, when someone wants to make a bank account change or request payment, is that part of like what you guys are working on, like just more verification, or is that like, that's where it's like maybe the state could have or the whole system could be better equipped to run those checks and balances, kind of, I guess?
Well, I know for us, when people are requesting to set up an ACH banking payment option for the first time, we're going to require, a small novel from them about, with all of their, they were going to have a bank letter. We didn't require that in the past. We're going to have, more official documentation, and there will be external verification through some other means besides the paper that they give us with this fraudulent phone number on it. And for people changing and updating their ACH, they're also going to have to provide their old ACH information, because it's not common for banks to update, or for companies to change banks and update their ACH. So that's a huge red flag right there if somebody wants to change it and update it. So if that does happen with someone, they're going to have to provide their old banking information. So some scammer isn't going to know this bank's old account number and routing number, whatever it is that they're using currently to change to. So we're hoping that, putting those types of things in place, doing the independent verification on the external side, and just being very diligent about the information that we're gathering and sharing, hopefully we can help curb this so that we don't ever have this experience again.
Or just turn off email. If you want to contact us, here's our office.
Yeah.
There you go. We survived without it before.
Yeah, for a long time. While we've got you in here today, let's talk about something else real quick. At a recent city council meeting, you kind of, in your report to lawmakers, you kind of raised a little bit of a red flag about revenues.
Revenue, yes.
Where are we now in terms of revenues for 2025? And I know there's another council meeting coming up tonight. So what's the word in terms of revenues these days?
I wish you would have prepared me for this question, because actually what I'm doing is going back to the office.
I just thought about it because I realized I didn't want to spend an entire show talking about fishing unless it's walleye.
Well, let me give
Erie.
you some more bad news.
Okay.
Well, actually, what I'm going to do today is prepare, an update for City Council as to where we are at the end of May, now that we've finally closed that month off. So as of April, we were down in income tax by 9% over the previous year, which is very concerning. A lot of that is in the business net profit area. And I'll tell you the reason for that is the state...
Thank you, state.
The state getting involved in municipal income tax collections, and they've boogered up the process, and they changed the law. Before, we limited. Geez, wow! See, you were supposed to have coffee for me, and I don't have any coffee.
Well, I try to rely on these guys, and as always, they've sorry.
Wow. Stop it.
Anyway, we used to limit the loss carry forward to 50% of the loss that you could carry forward in the next year. The state now says to businesses, because we want to be business friendly, and we do want to be business friendly, but we still have to operate, and our mechanism for operating is income tax. But the state said you can carry forward 100% of your loss until it's all exhausted. So we have lost business tax revenue. In addition to that, we have business entities now who are filing with the state instead of with us, because the state said, hey, if you want to file your municipal tax with us, you can do it through Ohio Business Gateway, and then we'll get it out to the cities. Now, there's still some question about whether they're even getting into the right entities, but that is a question for another day. However, we received a report. Now, there was one business who had, estimated that their profit in their municipal tax would be like $900,000. So last year, we had this one, basically $1 million revenue receipt that at the end of the year, when they reconciled, it was like, oh, well, we were wrong. Now, that $1 million needs paid back to this company. The one good thing about this process is that the state has said, if you don't want to send a refund check, then we'll just withhold your revenue until that has been eaten up. So we received an extra $1 million last year that we now owe this company back. But the state has taken care of that, and we are losing that $1 million in revenue this year.
So what is?
But that's just one example. I mean, we've lost more than that. I can't tell you the figures right now offhand, but I know it's business income tax, business net profit tax is what is really down for us.
And what does this mean in terms of the budget for 2025? I know the city had a carryover coming into the year.
Mm-hmm.
Is this at the rate we're going, if this continues, are we looking at eating into that carryover? How's this all going to play out, do you think?
Well, the carryover has already been accounted for in this current budget. So there isn't, and we have eaten it. We have consumed it in our spending plan for this year. So we may have to tighten up and not spend the budget, and that mean we might have to amend the budget to keep people from overspending. It just depends on how things look closer to the end of the year. I mean, we haven't even gotten six months in yet, so we're just going to have to keep a very watchful eye on revenue, which is why I'm going to give them a report tonight so they know where we are.
I look forward to
Today.
that. Look forward to hearing
Tomorrow
that.
night. Tomorrow night.
Yeah. Well, this show airs on Tuesdays. So
Oh, yeah.
it's-
Well,
it's,
see, I was right.
It's tonight.
See?
I mean, there is some good news coming tonight. There's a couple of existing businesses that want to expand their
Yes.
operations in Mansfield. So
Which is great.
we'll be talking about that tonight at council as well. Well, Kelly, thank you very much. I know this kind of broke while I was on vacation, and I didn't get to write about it very much. So I said, I'm going to contact Kelly and see if I can get her to come on the show 3 weeks later. And you were willing
The
to,
dust has settled a little bit.
yeah, you were
Let's
willing to
kick it
come
up
in
a
She
again.
didn't come in here swearing at us or
Yeah.
anything. Right?
Well, at least she stopped when the mics went on. I'll give her that. But any idea whether Secret Service, which is part of the Treasury Department, I guess, and the police department, whether they're actually going to be able to catch this person or persons, because financial scams are really hard
You
to
know,
catch.
I can't imagine. I'm hoping that they might be able to identify, at least have a picture of the person, but whether or not, I mean, this was really a sophisticated scam. They were pretty good. I mean, it wasn't good enough to get by me, but it was good enough to get by the rest of the people it needed to in order to be effective.
Yeah, I wonder if they have to work with the email clients like Outlook or Gmail, like whatever email provider you guys use to trace. I don't know how that works.
We
but-
gave them we gave them the email string. I know that they were trying to identify the IP address of the computer that sent the original email, and setting up a bank account. I don't know whether KeyBank allows people to set up an account online or if you actually have to go in and prove your identity. And I don't know any of those things in the banking world. But
I don't think
it
I know
would be
about the
interesting
banking.
to see.
I don't think I know about the banking world, and this goes back to when I was right out of college and was making $200 a week as a sports editor. I had a lot of bills that I had to pay, and I seldom had enough money at the end of the month to pay them all. So this was back when people actually wrote checks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I owed the phone company $70, I would write a check to what I owed the gas company, and I would put the gas company check in the phone company envelope, and I'd mail it. And then, several days later, I'd get a phone call from the phone company saying, "Hey, you sent us the wrong check." "Oh, did I? Well,
Buying yourself time.
send that back, and I'll send you a new one." So, I mean, I
Quite literally.
didn't defraud anybody. I just bought myself some time,
What a pain in the ass.
Or you forget to sign the check.
He's still doing it.
Mr. Hunley, you forgot to sign your check. "Oh, well, send that back to me. I'll be happy to. But please note."
he's a poor old man.
Yeah. Please note that you did get the check. I just forgot to sign it. So send that back. So, you had to keep the lights on. I
Maybe
mean,
the scammer's
Right.
you.
Yeah. I'm
He's been very vacation.
really. Do I
I was
look
on
like an
vacation.
He's a
Hey, are they
teenage
going to catch the
scammer.
scammer?
yeah, do I look like
You
somebody
think?
who knows enough about the internet to scam
You
anybody?
do have a lot
Carl's
of surprises.
a chapter in Carl's memoir is going to say, "I was a teenage scammer."
Scammer, yeah. Well, I was 22, but that's a whole nother thing. All right, folks, we're going to wrap up today's show on that note before law enforcement looks into my check writing records in Fostoria, Ohio in 1983. Many thanks to Kelly Converse for joining us today.
Thank you.
And for now, thanks again to all of you for listening to the Newsman Weekly. I'll be back in a second to put a bow on this week's episode. But until then, remember what Mark Twain said. If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything.